Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with one of the most creative Terran players in the history of the game in the red, the Admiral. It's GuMiho. Facing off against an increasingly dangerous Zerg in the blue, we have YoungYakov in a best-of-3 Terran versus Zerg showdown as part of WardiTV's Winter Cup. And while it was kind of him to name a tournament after me, we don't have time to dwell on that. Merely enough time to ask you to smash that like button, or maybe even subscribe. Tell me kind of the algorithm, and Jimmy, what do we have? No cringing. 1,797 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better than the very first Overlord as GuMiho skipped the Reaper for a reactor. Now the Overlord has to dangle its tentacles over the pervert pillar, which has a built-in fan. How convenient. Unfortunately, it can't stray but a little, as even a single appendage will be enough for those Marines to take a shot at. But the Zerglings are slipping in behind. The barracks could be lifted to provide vision maybe a little bit later on as he goes for the Hellions. Or the command center now. That works too, and oh, the Overlord turning into something of an Overlord as it is going to be taken out right off the bat. A pretty significant... Yeah, it died off screen. It might come back in the next season. But a pretty significant delay on the second command center orbital command. And some mining. And a few SCVs. Well, maybe like one producing. Is it worth it? Emotionally? Oh, definitely. Spiritually? I'd say yes. And, more practically, it depends. Now, that seems like a cop-out, but the entire RTS genre is a whole lot of it depends wrapped up in pretending to know what you're talking about, but I try to do so, just like these Zerglings wrapping one of the Hellions up and giving it a loving embrace all the way to death. And the second one is going to try to light them up, and the Marines, of course. 6 Marines early on. There's a medevac on the way, and this version of the 111 a little more aggressive. Well, taking out that Overlord, one usually cuts into the Zerg build. The first Overlord is not supposed to die. Notice how there's no more Overlords. No Overlords, as we've established. No. Sorry. No more Overlords sent out. That's because Terrans are so diligent about taking them out. It's usually risky to have more than one on the other side. But rarely do they focus on taking it out so early. And that means GuMiho has opened up the map for opportunities. Opportunities to murder as many workers as possible. The Marines jammed into the corner. The Zerglings trying to get a wraparound. But you know what that means? The Zerglings are here. And not there. The third base. The Queens will box out, anticipating exactly this. And GuMiho poking and prodding at the edges. He's just now building his third command center. A bit of a spicy take as he takes out another Overlord. Popped like an overripe tomato. And now the Hellions come in. A few drones getting charbroiled right off the bat. And YoungYakov was actually hard supply blocked. Now has 4 Overlords on the way. I didn't think I'd be commentating. Oh, wait. But well, wait, there's more. More Overlords, if you mean. Can't just say perchance. GuMiho. Or like Gumi Overlords. Oh my god. Jimmy. 3 Overlords dead. And GuMiho's only lost a single Hellion. That's not a trade. That's a murder. Alright, that's not... Huh. Well, you don't expect to see this. Obviously, YoungYakov didn't. I don't know if GuMiho actually expected to get this much done, but he's exploiting the fact that those Overlords usually, they feel pretty safe. Kind of tucked in. Usually you have the Queens. There's not even anti-air. But GuMiho just made 6 Marines. And that might be the only 6 Marines he builds, because he's taken us to McDonald's. 2 more factories on the way. Already Banshees in production. And 2 of them on the field, above the field, technically, and just kind of chilling. A very awkwardly angled wall, but I'm 85% sure it is one. Meanwhile, the Hellions, Roaches, and Queens, and, well, the Marines in the main are spotted by some of these surviving Ovies. Most of them just kind of hanging out and hoping they're protected when they're sitting just in front of the hatchery. Gives them a feeling of safety and security. to stay near where they were spawned. But it might be a false one as time goes on. Plus, 1 mech armor is on the way. Which means GuMiho is very likely going for the Hell clones yet. Well, he's building siege tanks, which are never a bad choice. And he's still just adding on the Marines. The Marines are almost entirely a bioshield. They are there to absorb the attacks, to kind of muck up any sort of units that try to dive on the siege tanks. The Marines are not there to do damage, unlike they usually are. Though, so far, they've done a lot of damage to the infrastructure of YoungYakov. He's at 72 drones. He's just now getting an infestation pit. There's a bunch of Hellbats. Well, after transforming from the Hellions that survived the earlier fray, but the Banshees are politely and violently ejecting the roaches from the base, as 3 Banshees is more than enough to take out several and completely discourage any sort of aggressive intentions. I'm getting so carried away with the details here that the broader strokes of this strategy, I think, are almost going unnoticed. And hey, get off my creep! Did that feel good, Brenda? Kind of. Not as good as I hoped. It never is. Oh, shut up, Susan. I don't... Sorry, I whacked out for... 3 more factories on the way, just now getting Magfield Accelerator. But interestingly, usually when you go for the Hell Clone strategy, it's to gain momentum early and then transition into the more classical heavy metal. All right? Yes, I know what I said. This isn't about music genres. This is about Terran genres. And right now, GuMiho's going from the siege tank base with Banshees in order to zone out roaches into Cyclones and Hellions. But if anyone can navigate the treacherous waters of Mech versus Zerg, the Admiral should be the one to chart the course. Hellbat drop. Blue Flame is on the way. Just now starting it. Let the Overseer watch. Another one will die, but this time, getting the information, the Cyclone just kind of pops out and knocks it down. So far, while it's been a painful start for YoungYakov, it has not been a deadly one. 'Tis but a flesh wound. Well, a series of flesh wounds. But the Hell Clones are on the way. GuMiho pioneering this strategy, his most high-profile match. I don't think it was the World Championship, but I think it was like an IM Katowice, like 2017 against Rainer. Pictured... Oh, wow. We're all old now. Okay, ignoring that. I don't know. GuMiho with 170 supply. The Marines, the survivors, will be sent out. Distracts enough. YoungYakov has put together Roach, Hydra, Infester. He's getting Lurker range. None of this is particularly great against the Mass Siege Tank and the Cyclones, but having any amount of Infestors is absolutely critical. Knocks down the Medevac. And the 4th base. Right now, GuMiho's sticking his neck out. YoungYakov is going to do his best to take advantage of that and ideally chop off his head, but I think that's going to be almost impossible as 5 Banshees. It was speed about to complete and cloak already done. GuMiho has made himself untouchable. But, well, GuMiho has been taking us to McDonald's. YoungYakov is making his Spire great again. And going straight towards the Broodlords. Do not pass go. Do not build an Ultralisk Cavern. I think the biggest mistake he could have made was an Ultralisk Cavern. But instead, the Broodlords might be the option. Get over here! And he had just enough detection in order to take it out. But an Infestor could be sniped off. All these units so fragile and easily die in a single Cyclone lock-on. And the Banshees will assassinate a Queen. And then they'll be right-clicked on a hatchery. So, good and bad. Mixed bag there. GuMiho going up to 9 factories. The Industrial Revolution is already completed. And it's expanding exponentially. A few Zerglings going to be taken out, both by the Blue Flame Hellions and the Hyper Shees here with their speed upgrade done. Almost impossible to chase down. He's just going to have to deflect them. GuMiho is maxed out before the Zerg. And YoungYakov has to figure out how to deal with it. The Lurkers A bit optimistic. Well, I don't actually know. He has +2 armor, and here come the Banshees to help clean it up. Obviously, if you don't have detection, it's going to be hard to take out the Lurkers. But unless they just don't burrow, because he's looking the other way, the Lurkers are not burrowing. They will finally, but the Cyclones get away. Meanwhile, another Hell Clone contingent, a gang of Hell Clones, will be slicing its way down to the Queens. Oh no, the Queen's here to deal with the Banshees. They were struggling at that, and now they're not struggling at all as they're in the unit's lost tab. The Blinding Cloud, it does nothing as the lock-ons go right through it since they're technical spell damage. He yanks in a couple clones, but wait, there's more. Locks on to the hatchery to the north side and might be able to just take it out, casually killing one of the Hydras at the same time. Drones dying as well. GuMiho with full control of the map. But YoungYakov still has 193 supplies, working towards Brood Lords. And again, it's painful. It's hard. It's incredibly annoying to deal with. But this army is very fragile, as he's demonstrating now. 5, 6 Cyclones and a Banshee taken out in a split second, crumbling the moment it faces direct confrontation, like many Terran players in social situations. 5 more clones on the way. How many tanks at the back? Just 3 of them. And a single Blinding Cloud. He'll double up. Make sure the Blinding Cloud covers both the siege tanks. The Cyclones are locked on. And the choke point here is a bit difficult for both sides, as GuMiho not really able to close the distance with the Lurkers, but at the same time, the Hydras are coming right through into the... Oh no, he sniped off the Overseer! There's no detection for the Banshees! Unfortunately, the Banshee count isn't quite high enough, and he's gonna be able to gut the base. It's just gonna cost him heavily. The Cyclone's gonna try to intercept on the way out, while the Banshees are continuing to do damage. Cyclones get a good lock. GuMiho brawling it out in the midfield, and YoungYakov so close to taking a decisive engagement. But the lack of Overseers was unfortunately, the major flaw. The SCVs are pulled, some Tacti boys to repair, doing what so many players neglect to do. And now a Raven on the way for GuMiho. I mean, you're struggling for detection. It's one way to solve it. GuMiho uses all the tools. He is definitely a different style of Terran, almost by necessity, with his unique condition of being the sweatiest Terran in the world. Because he has a condition called hyperhidrosis, and he has to play with his hand in a towel because he's so sweaty. That is not sarcasm. That is a literal thing. I think he has like a different, like a kind of like an oven mitt sort of glove now. But the point is, his nickname is also the Towel Terran, which is not a metaphor. My point being, he plays differently, in my opinion, entertainingly. But is it enough to break this? As YoungYakov has shown surprising resilience, losing a hatchery left, right, and sometimes center. But so far, well, it's painful. It's tough. But it's just one good engagement away. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa! For both sides. The Blinding Cloud does nothing. The lock-ons are so good. The Lurkers are knocked out. Has to be so careful, though. Hydras lunge forward. The Raven out in front, whips out an anti-armor missile. Dorito duffs some of the Hydras, but the Banshees flew in. Maybe a little bit too quickly, and it'll cost them their lives. The Lurkers trying to flank from the high ground, managed to retreat back. 16 Corruptors on the way, and the only anti-air right now is the Cyclones. Many of them badly bruised, battered, and no chance of repair anytime soon. The Lurkers moving forward. The hatchery goes down. Smart Servo's about to complete. I'm surprised he didn't already have it done for that quick transform time on the Hellions, and technically Thors and Vikings, but we don't have the Nordic composition here. Locks on to another Lurker, and the individuals are easy enough to pick off. That's why Zerg usually travel in packs. Well, more Overlords. Yet again. A Nidus Worm in the main base, but there's siege tanks on location to deal with it. GuMiho with 2k in the bank. This game has been brutal. I haven't looked at the supplies of the bank for like several minutes, just assuming that it's quite high on both fronts, as both of them laying into one another. But so far, GuMiho getting the better end of the engagements. But the Lords of the Brood could change everything. It's a numbers game. If there are enough Brood Lords to just overwhelm the Cyclones. The Cyclones do not... The lock-on is a shorter range than the Broodlords, and the siege tanks. Sometimes your best friend become your greatest enemy very quickly when Broodlings are nibbling at your wheels. So... And he has yet to scout it. Right now, GuMiho, he's slowed things down. He's taken the base in the top right. How many orbital commands? 6 orbital commands. 3 more command centers on the way. Scanning forward. YoungYakov is now a wall of spines. Chiropractor's office over here. Whole bunch of spines ready to at least hold. And the Broodlords are scouted, but they're already halfway across the map. He can't even... He has too much supply to build. He has 1 Thor on the way. He's gonna need more than that. And here we go. A semi-base trade. The Broodlords will take the south, the Hell Clones to the north. More Hell Clones. 17 of them, though I think that number will be dwindling rapidly. YoungYakov doesn't have much in the bank, but his army is incredibly expensive, and that's a good thing. For the most part, the Vipers pop out right into the Cyclones. One of them barely escapes. The Planetary is holding. He doesn't even have building armor. It's just the Broodlings are not doing enough because he doesn't have any air attack upgrades. The GuMiho's Planetary. Oh my. It's living. He needs to target the SCVs. He's simply not. The Lurker's going forward. Finally, he may be able to get this. But the Hell Clones are doing so much damage on the other side. And now 4 Thors in production. 4 Thors that should have been years ago. But now, in times of desperation, he reaches for the biggest unit. Because your mother wasn't available, and 6 Thors in production to deal with the Broodlords head-on. Is there neural parasite on the infestors? No. But that's so many broods! 14 broods. He intercepts some of the lurkers. Great spread. Can't believe it's not butter. But the Broodlords, the death ball of broods, is still grinding forward. Several Thors in high impact mode. They have +3 armor, but only +1 attack. And 3 Thors in the siege tanks kind of working against him to an extent. But we already established how the Broodlords don't hit that hard. And the Cyclone's getting some lock-ons, knocks out the Raven. And the Thors are starting to grind through. He goes into high impact mode for that direct targeting. The Hydra's trying to lunge through, but the Hellions underneath. The Thor's blasting. And the Broodlord's still finding some progress. Both sides plummeting in supply. GuMiho is down to 110. He's drained his entire bank. He's lost 40 SCVs. But I think he still has a few orbital commands. Only 4. And the Hydras are coming up. The Broodlords, he's down to 2 with like a quarter of a Broodlord HP between them. Oh, they will live for now. Wow. Wow. Almost dead even. I would say, in the grand scheme of things, because GuMiho already has many of his upgrades, though not as many as he'd like with the Thors, and he has orbital commands. And now Mass Lurker. He knocked out the Cyclones that were plaguing him across the map, and he removed the majority of the siege tanks, and Thors aren't so good against Lurkers en masse. This might be the play. But we'll see whether we're calling him Shakespeare or optimistic by the end. The Hydra Lurker. The tech switch back and forth. Ye old backhand from the Zerg. Sure, yeah, that's what we're going with. Just pretend it's a thing. Please clap. The Thor gets slurped up into the medevac. The Hellbats are holding the door for what it's worth. Here we go. Deja vu. We've just been in this base before. Base trading with Thors. While the main base is trying to hold against the Lurkers. Both sides battered down with only the dregs of an army that they had just a couple minutes ago. But still, both very capable of winning this game. YoungYakov is cutting off the production, though. If he can isolate the outlying bases, but at the same time he's losing a bunch of drones. And how does he put together an army to deal with this? Banshees are back on the menu. A single Lurker to the north. A couple Lurkers at the 3 o'clock. Meanwhile, the Thors, he could actually deny all of the detection. There's only 4 orbital commands. One of them's in the air right now, just like this game. Another command center trying to fly to the next map. Oh, blinding cloud! Lurkers! Scans! Too late! He's right up on top of it and he eviscerates the Thors at his door. Knocks down one inside a medevac, and that was a decisive victory for the Zerg. He had one shot, he had one opportunity. Well, metaphorically, it all kind of came together there. And he captured it. YoungYakov, if he doesn't completely wipe that army, if it kind of goes back and forth, GuMiho will recover. There's orbital commands. Need I say more? It's kind of my job, but I don't... There's still planetary, like, if he gets knocked down to like half this many lurkers, if he doesn't nail that timing perfectly. But I think it's now YoungYakov's game to lose. He rolled with the punches. He weathered the cyclones. He beat back the Hellions. He shot down the Banshees. And while the Broodlords, only one remains. The Lurkers underneath were enough to undercut GuMiho. He's now going, he's getting another Raven. YoungYakov triple expanding, which is a little on the greedy side. The army supply 86 to 63. GuMiho lost a lot of SCVs. The income? The Mule Mountains. And GuMiho has to defend this perfect. What is his army? 11. 11 siege tanks. These Hellbat. These are tank drops. That one Broodlord is a massive complication. That one Broodlord existing at all is going to be okay. Well, that's one outflanked by a missile turret isn't ideal. Get over here. I said, get over. Yes. GG! That was enough. He knocks down 2 medevacs, earns 2 Gs, and honestly, an incredible display of tenacity from YoungYakov. It looked, well, actually at no point did it look like he would crumble. He was taking hits, but he was rolling with it. And that's, you got 2 choices when you deal with that sort of army composition. You either just wait for your opportunity to swing back, or you completely retreat into your shell. YoungYakov found that timing. The hidden Broodlord switch. GuMiho did not suspect it until it was already far too late. When you scan, if the Broodlords are slowly but surely flapping towards your outlying bases, and that's when you realize, and it was the worst possible time. Well, the worst possible time would be after he lost all his units, but he was at 200 supply. And he was committed on the other side of the map. He could not build anything more, and he had nothing to defend. And even then, it was still ridiculously close, but wow, what a game. I had high hopes for these two. YoungYakov, 21 years old. One of our few players, even younger than Clem and Rayner. Part of maybe a new generation of SC2 players. I guess, depending on how you want to measure it. But GuMiho, decidedly, GuMiho's professional career in StarCraft 2 is almost 3/4 of YoungYakov's life. So, a little more experience, but I think you could see the resilience there. The hardest part of Zerg is not choosing when to do the tech switch. Okay, I want to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound like cast or bullshit, but it's going to be hard. The hardest part of Zerg is not knowing what army you want. It's knowing when you want it. It's so hard against especially the high-pressure Terran compositions, which is gestures to all of them, to actually know when the Broodlord switch is going to work. Like, you can go Broodlords, but if it's too early, he's going to get Thors. If he's in position, if it gets stalled out, Broodlords die to what we saw there. Even against 3 or 4 Thors, against 12 Broods, it still only barely kind of did enough. And it's been a while since I've seen a Zerg manage to pull that off. Or at least it's kind of rare. But GuMiho, that is the weaker part of Mech. is you're rarely kind of dropping in the main or running around and forcing them to show all their tech. You're more working around the edges and taking bites out of the hatcheries. Mostly metaphorically. Those cyclones, though. It's a lot of damage. Wow, I love that game. I didn't just like it, I loved it. Happy Valentine's Day. Jimmy, this is Valentine's Day, right? Close enough, alright? Maybe I'll give you a heart on your comment. Which, you know, just know, I do love your comments. Unless they suck. But not yours. The bad ones, obviously. But the reason I don't usually respond directly or give that is because I'm lazy. I could lie and say it helps me put my energy and focus into casting, but it doesn't. I just don't really want to do it. But I do like the comments, so it's a bit of a conundrum. Moving on. The SCV is chased down as the Zerglings. Wait, what? Is he just walking out? You can't just walk. Where are you going? You can't just walk away. Did he kill an Overlord? What? A Zergling? Yeah, come on in. That's kind. Door's open. He's gonna get an SCV? No. But, okay, so what's the best case scenario here? He's baited out a lot of lings. Honestly, the best case is these lings existing. So, because every couple of lings is not a drone. I know. I'm here to do math, so you don't have to. And that's a lot of not drones that YoungYakov built this early on. We got the 1-1-1, the Destiny Cloud Fist build. Oh, fuck. How did I hurt my... This job is dangerous, all right? Please like and subscribe so I can pay for health insurance. I know. There's like a little... Anyways. Viking. Overlord. Okay. Overlord. Got a good look around. See the third command center. Yeah. GuMiho making a little effort. Well, I think this is less trying to hide it and more this is the closest flight path without actually building on a low ground. Okay, so are there enough Zerglings to stop the Hellions? No. Roaches, also no. It's a bit convoluted here. Hey, Susan, where are you? I was injecting, Brenda. 1, gross. 2, come on. Sorry, I am. 6 drones. GuMiho used the, I guess I'll just run by strat, and it could have been a lot worse. It's actually GuMiho kind of floundering a bit there, and not really picking his targets to... Now, as amusing as it is to say focusing fire when it comes to the Hellions, obviously he didn't want to just target the drones. What, the Viking? Okay, sure. Just gonna fly away. Hey, Brenda, remember when... No. No. We could fly away. Ah! McDonald's. Yet again. GuMiho making it happen. And as we saw in Hero Marine versus Cyril, as we've seen many times over, it's more of a stylistic thing. I think it's like... It's kind of almost... Charge lot versus blink openers and Protoss versus Zerg, which is somehow a relatable example. Feels like that's a more complicated example than just saying it's one of the 2 openers. But it's just, if Terrans start going mech enough, the Zerg kind of adapt. Not even necessarily their builds, but their mindset. They don't get caught off guard by the Hellions or the multiple Banshees as often. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I noticed an Overlord, a Dropper Lord on the way. Is that going to be for a Queen Chauffeur? It's looking like a Roach Queen all-in, with the queens in order to provide anything resembling anti... Bit of a tight fit, Lucille. We are identical twins. Some of us are more identical than others, Lucille. I'm not even gonna dignify that with a response. I don't know. Sorry. Weird day. Well, alright, so the queens are in the Overlord, but they still need detection. More queens being ferried over. Oh, this is gonna get weird. YoungYakov has... I don't think that's enough. That's a lot of roach rat. That's 4 siege tanks. There's still the Banshees, which are quite a threat, especially if the queens can't transfuse. Also, they're taking some hits from the siege tanks on the high ground. One of them obliterated. The Hellions will dart in behind, and the economy is being incinerated while the push is kind of stalled out before it even really starts. If he loses the Overseer, then the Banshees have free reign over all this. He's transfusing the Overseer, trying to get some creep tumors. The Hellions were cleaned up, but GuMiho is a worker lead, which is not ideal for the Zerg, but look at the supply. More siege tanks. Hellbat's out in front. Quite an awkward standoff between everyone here, but surprisingly a relatively stable one. As the siege tanks aren't going anywhere fast, and really the queens, let's be honest, not so much either. But if the queens are okay, well, Hyper Shees are about to complete, making it that much easier for GuMiho to defend all the angles. And we're getting to the point where the Banshee count is enough. He can just take out the queens. And the Roaches and Ravagers are next on the agenda. Yep, that's it. There go the queens. And now he's just going to try to get what damage he can. Might be able to take out several siege tanks, but targeting the Ravagers for the most part. Yes, SCVs will die. And he's looking the other way! Oh no! It's a disaster! One job! Yes, he will still defend, but GuMiho ends up losing 3 out of 5 Banshees. It completely really puts a big asterisk on the strong defense here as the queens amble their way back home. YoungYakov up to 7. The worker lead has flipped yet again. As the Zerg, especially 5 Banshees, that is an existential threat to your economy. 2 Banshees, that is a moderate annoyance. There's a big difference. Especially considering the Spire is already done. Mutas. A bold move. I think, therefore I am. But trying to exploit the fact that there really shouldn't be any anti. There's a single Viking. But GuMiho, again, is going from siege tanks into Cyclones. As opposed to the other way around. The Cyclones are the end goal, as opposed to the means to that end. This is a wild couple games so far. The Mutas are dangerous, but yeah, he's revealing the Mutas. Probably expecting GuMiho to not have... He's going to start the production now. He's expecting GuMiho to be starting Cyclones and turrets now. Unfortunately, these Cyclones and turrets will be available by the time the Mutas arrive. The only saving grace... No! He already has Mag Field Accelerator. The Cyclones are fully operational by the time the Mutas arrive. Some Hellbats are just kind of wandering in. But the Cyclones easily lock on and knock out the Mutas. One at a time, but there aren't that many more. He's dancing around, gonna take out... Oh, God. It's a lot of damage. Locks on with the clones. And YoungYakov, his big switch this time into the Spire, is shot down immediately. This is the difference between too early, too late, and just right. The Goldilocks zone of Zerg tech is not found this time around, as GuMiho is in a very strong position, despite the fact this planetary is a few well-placed corrosive bows away from disaster. If he loses this, that makes it more complicated yet again, and I think he might. Oh, the target fire. GuMiho's repairing. But we have to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? YoungYakov gonna lose another huge chunk of Roach Ravager in order to deny a single command center and a few SCVs. Barely got any of the army. Yeah, 77 drones back at home, adding a few more in. But the most important point, the infestation pit just started. There's not going to be a hive. The upgrades are almost non-existent. In fact, they are non-existent on the ground. He's getting +1 melee and +1 ranged attack. But GuMiho, well, his supply has creeped its way up, somewhat ironically. He's been struggling to... Well, he didn't really have the production. That's the hardest part of Mech, is building up the infrastructure production. Factories cost 100 gas apiece, and they take the most time of any production facility to build. Starports are 100 gas as well. And your units are all very heavy on it. Yes, the Hellions can fill in as a mineral sink, but the Cyclones, another 100 gas. So, incrementing them out, especially when you're not just your 4th, but your 3rd base has been a bit of a question mark, is quite difficult. But unfortunately, I think the Mutas ended up backfiring pretty hard for YoungYakov. And they're going to cost him the advantage. Though they're very far from costing him the game, as GuMiho has not been able to capitalize with this army composition. 92 drones. Gonna go for the mass Lingbang. One way to deal with the Cyclones is offer them so many targets they reach their preset kill limit. Or the lock-on is mitigated because of the sheer amount of units that it can pick from. And almost no Terrans, except for things like Ultralisks, will really target too much manually in a larger fight. Most Terrans will if they have the opportunity, but the lock-on is almost always on autocast. GuMiho trying for a 5th base. We're going to be in a semi-base trade, but there's siege tanks on the high ground. This is not so much a trade. Yet again, as a... looking more one-sided than a Mobius strip this time. He bruises a few units at the front, but GuMiho takes out a base with ease alongside 20 drones. And the roaches are coming back, but there's still some banshees overhead. He might be able to take them out. Fungal just completely misses everything. A bit of an awkward angle for the Cyclones, but with no Fungal to hold them down, they'll slink away off the creep and pick off a few more roaches in the process. GuMiho's supply dipping quite dramatically, and a little bit of creep up here will help to jump the rest of the clones, but guess what? But wait, there's more! More Cyclones to the bottom left side. He's trying to chase the Cyclones to the end of the earth in the top right, but the 9 o'clock base. We've almost reached midnight here. GuMiho might be a little bit behind on supply, but these Cyclones are impossible to deal with. Without Vipers, without Infestors, things are coming apart very quickly, both literally and figuratively. Banshees with no detection, going to be able to deny another attempted base. 2 hatcheries going to get sniped. It's going to cost pretty dramatically, but he's lost so many overlords. YoungYakov, think that's one of those, like, you can feel it slip. Especially as Zerg, you can feel it trending in the wrong direction, and you try to pull it back together. But it's like punching water. All right. He just couldn't pull together the army he needed despite having the economy. The Mutas were too far of a commitment. They were too much of an investment. And GuMiho is back on the board, or is on the board, actually. Technically, he wasn't on the board before, but now he is. You got it? All right, we got it. Any Gumi bros out there? Jimmy, just cut to the... Jimmy. Just cut to game number 3. All right? Game number 3. Celestial Enclave. We'll see if he remembers. The most spicy of maps in the pool, and probably at least half, even a best of 3 series, I've seen it vetoed. Where usually how it works is each player gets a set of vetoes, and then they pick the maps. So if one player, like if say GuMiho, obviously not here, just, well, offensively GGing his own hatch. I guess defensively GG. Anyways, if GuMiho decided he never wanted to play this map, almost every format, every tournament format, would allow him to ban it. I guess maybe not a best of 7, in which case we just start with the picks. But it's almost always bans and then picks, as opposed to the other way around, which I guess makes sense. Because otherwise people would just pick a map that is really ideally biased for whatever strategy or matchup they're playing. GuMiho going for a command center first on the budget base here. Only has 5 mineral patches and a single gas, but it is a pocket. Though there is an employee entrance for workers that can slip through mineral walking magic. This has been one of the most interesting series. I mean, no shade to Cyril, Clem, Rainer, Maru. But GuMiho is always... And YoungYakov has a different take on things. Unfortunately, it's very hard to be consistent with Zerg at the highest level. Especially nowadays, where the game is kind of figured out and, like, stray but a little, as we saw even last game. And things can fall apart quickly. But I expect to see more and more of them. You might notice him popping up more and more, and that's because he's competing, obviously, but he's competitive with some of the top players, even if his current ranking doesn't quite reflect it, in my opinion. Maybe his ZVZ is really bad. Though that shouldn't affect it much. There's barely any Zergs playing in tournaments, so... CVP. That's probably it. Yeah. Baneling... oh, sorry. Maybe it was just weird for me. Anyways, he saw that this was command center first. He's just gonna bust him. Alright. It's busting time. Is this gonna work? Okay, so... 2 base bust from YoungYakov. I mean, GuMiho did not scout. He did not send anything out. A good old-fashioned Baneling bust. Oh, the Hellion. This is... He's looking. He's not finding. It's not... these Zerglings existing is not suspicious. Any more Zerglings existing would be. The scouting Hellion... The fact that this Hellion is not at home is obviously not ideal. That's so many Banelings. He's successfully bamboozled him. There's no third. And here they come. Oh no, it's busted time. And he, well, okay, it's a little, he doesn't want to waste his last Baneling, which, more Banelings on the way. And more trickling in. He has to bust through yet another depot. Good damage control from GuMiho, but he's going to lose so many SCVs. He does have 3 orbital commands. If he's not quite literally dead, he's still in the game. Because mules. He drops down the Viking, and the wall will hold! The SCVs! The boys patch it back together. But, of course, it's not. He's going to try to get some Banshees. And it takes 5 Banelings to reliably get through. So, well, he's going to try to wall off. He's patching together the barricade as best he can, but that's not a wall. The Baneling, well, this is awkward. Now he can't repair that. Oh, but the depot dropped! It wasn't quick enough. That would have given him full HP, but the Zerglings get in. Well, that one Baneling. Oh, it hurts so good. The Baneling takes out 4 or 5 SCVs. Viking steps into the gap. The Zerglings trying to rip it apart, but GuMiho holds. A couple of very bold Banelings. A single Viking. And a single Hellion. He may just lift up the Viking. He gets back into the sky. A single SCV. No, the Hellion. Oh, he's gonna wall in the Viking. But and a Banshee's out. What a save! GuMiho holds. And honestly, I think he's ahead. It could have been better, but it could have been so much worse. What a slapdash defense as GuMiho MacGyvers his way out of the situation. That, in case you're wondering why you don't see Baneling bust very often, that was the literal best case scenario, and honestly, very good execution. Obviously, could have maybe done a little better on focusing, but that was, it doesn't get any more better, more goodly than that. Okay. Yeah. I said what I said. Command center first, like 2 Hellions, no Banshees, no bunker. That was best case. And still, GuMiho was able to slap together defense. This time around, he's going bio. I think the lack of gas because of the budget base and the excess minerals with all the extra mules here, leading him directly. Now, Mutas. A bold move. See if it works out for him. GuMiho fully capable of playing a bio composition. As we've seen, sometimes he looks like the absolute best. Maybe not the most perfect micro, but the timing and decision making. We'll see if it remains the case. Actually working on the blockade here. The set of rocks in between the bases. I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea, but GuMiho's work. He doesn't know about the Spire. He doesn't know the timing of the third base. He's assuming there's a third base now. But YoungYakov is doubling down. He's following up the Baneling bust with a quick Spire. Relatively quick in the grand scheme of things here. And what GuMiho doesn't know can certainly hurt him. He's only now ramping up the Marine production. He has no missile turrets. Of course, you don't want missile turrets till like the second the Mutas are flying in. A single Viking and the Banshee sent out. And he's going to use the Banshee to try to get some intel from the main. Nine. Oh, he knows now. Yeah, he sees double gas. He doesn't need to see the Spire, even though he might have just seen a Muta pop out. Yeah. Stand very still. Zerg vision is based on... Uh-oh. He wasn't building missile turrets until this very moment. But they still might be done in time. Well, a bit of an awkward start. The Marines losing several SCVs, which is less than ideal. The add-ons, yeah, this is kind of a janky setup, technical term. And if he snipes off Combat Shield, that would be a pretty huge deal. Don't think he's gonna get it. The Marine count is 25 Marines, but they're struggling with the Mutas continually. Oh, GuMiho. Bleeding out Marines left and right. Though, a single Thor on the way. Welcome back. Actually picking up. I don't know if he's going to go all the way across or just try to intercept the Mutas, but YoungYakov with a very diligent micro on the Mutalist. Is there another command center? No, he's just setting up. GuMiho really struggling to deal with the Mutas, but look at the supply. 131 to 104. This is, well, he's feigning strength right now. Sun Tzu would be proud of YoungYakov's plays, but GuMiho gonna try to call his bluff a bit. The Mutas will dart into the Bane. Some Banelings. Baneling speed finishes right in time. He's gonna drop back. The Mutas are in the main base. He's gonna lose the starport of all things. Meanwhile, the siege tanks are out in front. Stims forward. There's no medevacs with this, which GuMiho is going real deep. He's digging very deep and very greedily, but it doesn't matter. There's nothing to stop him. GuMiho takes it to, oh, the Thor intercepting the Mutas. GuMiho with that perfect defense. He couldn't ask for better. And takes it. Bringing us to our anti-spoiler series. It's not a long one. I'm gonna actually spoil the anti-spoiler. I didn't know that we'd see a perfect Baneling bust defense from GuMiho. Would you like to see another? Jimmy, would you like to see another? That was the cue. Sorry. GuMiho versus Karpfen. You might not have heard of Karpfen, and neither have I. But I believe from the qualifiers of the same tournament. I've already spoiled the, possibly the end. But it's about the journey. As long as you don't stop believing. I loved how calm. You don't get to this level of StarCraft 2 without being calm. Most of the time, at least. But the just continually slapping down buildings and sandbagging the attack. Wow, that is... And it seems like the... Yeah, there's a Baneling nest in production. And before 2 minutes, GuMiho, no SCV Scout, no Reaper, no Fox. All right, not a single. And despite all of that against YoungYakov, he still held the line. But we'll see if Karpfen has any better luck. This is a straight-up Baneling bust. Literally, not even a quick Baneling bust. This is a Baneling cheese. What's the difference? Well, the difference between a cheese and an all-in. A cheese is significantly less effective if it gets scouted or if it's known. Whereas an all-in is only somewhat less effective. I'd say like 30% versus 60 plus. Almost all cheeses are all-ins in many ways, but not all all-ins are cheeses. And now that we've had our culinary discussion, there is a barracks in the air. The Marines... Deja... Oh, but the Baneling... Well, the Marines will take out the Overlord. The Banelings decided to just bust through the wall, despite the fact the door was open. The Zerg... But GuMiho just kind of rebuilds it, which seems like a misappropriation of Banelings. But here we go. Slaps down another engineering bay. And another one. As engineering bays build the quickest for the least minerals, you get the most HP out in front. And GuMiho has exactly 0 units that aren't SCVs. There's nothing here. How can you hold? Well, overestimating the power of Banelings might be one way. He's building more engineering base. He's got to build the wall to keep the Zerg out. They're not sending their best. They're sending the murdering Zerglings and Banelings. Unfortunately, the technology to... Well, oh, he's busting. But wait. And the SCV almost trips over the other. The engineering bay is holding. Another SCV just cancels one. He ran out of minerals, I think. And GuMiho. A GuMi hold. Karpfen, I think, panicking. It was the paralysis of choice. He had a wide open door. He's like, I'm busting it. Because that's what you're supposed to do. It's a Baneling bust. You bust. Busting makes me feel good. As philosophers have said. Just search up bustin' on YouTube if you'd like. And you'll find a great philosopher. I digress. So GuMiho goes out with 3 Hellions. Very optimistic. Finds his... The Hellion micro, almost perfect. Really, about as good as it could ever get. But puts himself in a precarious situation yet again. As he's down to 2 Hellions. The thing is, Karpfen barely has more drones than he started with. I think he just built 2 more. He's been at 14 drones this whole time. There is no follow-up. There is no mid-game. Do and or die. Both are usually relevant when it comes to Banelings. He scans the Natchery. There's 0 drones. Which means there's nothing behind this. And the Hellion count is too high. The wall is planned and eventually rebuilt. And GuMiho holds. How about one more? How about one more? You're like, how many games of GuMiho holding Baneling bust do you have, Winter? One more? For the road? Like and subscribe, and we can do one more. Did we get enough? I'm just gonna say yes. Well, don't worry about the details. Maybe worry a little. We're back with Carpfin. So getting to play GuMiho at all in a tournament, especially one that's going to be cast, which is where these replays come from, which means it was high enough profile, means he either got very lucky or took out some decent players to get there. Probably a bit of both. But the exponential curve from, like, your average grandmaster to a pro like YoungYakov, and then GuMiho, and then Sarah, is just, it's almost a vertical cliff. As someone, like, the highest I've ever been, bro. No, we're not doing that bit. I don't have much time to pontificate. At around rank 50 GM on North America, which is about 50 ranks lower than any GM on any server. And that was a lot of work, and a lot of stress, and a lot of intensity. And I guarantee you, let's just say rank 50 GM today would lose, if there was money on the line and incentive to win, rank 50 GM would easily lose 99, maybe 100 out of 100 games to Sarah, or Clown, or Hero. Well, maybe not Hero. Hero would probably lose like 10 because it's more fun that way. 5 games for Hero today. That's how good it's been, by the way. What a day. This has been GuMiho and YoungYakov, and also Carpfin showing up. Literally. But being in the top 0.1% of something there's 100,000 people in still is a pretty large list. That's 1,000. Oh wait, 100. Something like that. That should have been simple math, but here we are. So GuMiho's making 2 command centers. The Threepers are the start. The Queen's getting bullied, as usual, but at least the Reapers are a bit sporting, and they will grenade themselves out. Another Brenda bounce around the corner. And there's the Baneling nest. Carpfin transferred... Well, okay, so the second gas is super suspicious. He transferred workers to the low ground. I think trying to bamboozle GuMiho. The problem is, a mass Reaper build is almost always going to be able to scout it. Like, if he had gone for a single Reaper, or the Marines again, well, he's going to get away with it. But GuMiho's building, he may not anticipate the Baneling nest again. This is another, like, it's so almost bad. Last time it was good. All right, this is like the very borderline worst possible timing. I guess more borderline would be if GuMiho's going for a Banshee blindly or something, but there's still potential. As GuMiho has been obscenely greedy. I don't even understand why you would go 3 command center before getting a factory and a starport against someone who you should beat 100 out of 100 times. But GuMiho likes living life on the edge. And it's busting time. He spots the Banes. The bunker on the outside is certainly a less than ideal option. Will he just bust the bunker? No, but that means he's going to lose a lot of Zerglings. The Reapers will snipe off one of the Banelings. Stim could be taken out. Oh, it's not a wall. But it's almost... both players figuring that out at the same time. More Banelings on the way, but the Reapers are still making a lot of progress. They have that jump up to the high ground. I feel like, again, GuMiho offered up such a juicy target with this setup that Carpfin is kind of stun-locking himself. And Stim is going to finish. No? Denied at the last second, but so are all the Banelings. The Reapers, up and down and up and down and all around, and it doesn't matter. GGWP in what should have maybe been the best opportunity ends up being the worst one. But yet another hold by GuMiho. More like GuMihodor. Jimmy, edit that out. The day of GuMiho concludes, and I really enjoyed that GuMiho versus YoungYakov series. That was a great display of actual strategy, one which, I mean, I sometimes gets overshadowed because the game, StarCraft really puts the real time in strategy, I think, and it sometimes overshadows, you know, that second part. But we had a whole lot of both today, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. I hope it made your day just a little bit better. Make sure to check out Wardy, support. Wardy's doing Patreon. I told him before, should be more focused on Patreon. But speaking of, if you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, of which I use a lot of it to support things like Wardy and other tournaments. It's an investment, so I can bring good games for the fans. Thank you to our Mule Tier patrons, Big Jiggy, Devin, Dork, Kate, Mario, Suit, and everyone. And I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So thank you for watching. Make sure to check out this video that Jimmy picked out for you. And good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Thanks for watching. Stay chill.